Alright, welcome back. Here with another replay on Total War Warhammer 3. And I'm playing as Tzeentch again. And this time I'm playing against the Dark Elves on the Eye in the North. And one thing that I was looking at when I was picking my roster for this matchup was not bringing too many troops that are heavily armored, because from my experience, the Dark Elves have a lot of armor-piercing missile troops. And so when you bring heavily armored targets, you're kind of just losing out on some of your money because you're rewarding them for having the armor-piercing component to their missile makeup. So as far as my unit composition, we've got Marauders of Tzeentch, 3 squads of those, 2 squads of Marauders with Spears, 2 squads of Blue Horrors, 2 squads of Screamers, 2 squads of Pink Horrors, and we've got the Exalted Lord of Change with the magic of Tzeentch. I brought Pink Fire, Infernal Gateway in case they have any valuable high armor troops. You see the damage is armor piercing purely. And I also brought Blue Fire. And then the Portal Glyph ability so that I could summon the Furies. I checked the price point on that. I think it's 200 gold. And considering a squad of Furies is 600, I figure it's worth bringing that. So for my opponent, a lot of Bleak Swords. I want to say they have 5 squads of Bleak Swords. They've got Blackguard of Naggarond, Dark Shards with shields, Reaper Bolt Thrower, and Malekith on a dragon. So I'll actually speed this up to get things going. So, pretty typical approach. Keeping Screamers around and keeping an eye on Malekith. I figured he was probably going to try to get a breath attack off, but not too many high value targets for him to do that on. All the troops that I have in this matchup are pretty low value. You know, Marauders with Spears, Blues and Pinks, Screamers. None of them cost more than 700, and my Lord is sitting in the back. So they're going to get on top of point 2 with their Bleak Swords, so I'm running in there myself. Looks like he put down a wind attack. Just kind of caught the back of my Marauders as they charge in there. Blue Horse firing in for support. Screamers kind of hanging out, trying to figure out what I want to do with them. He's still hanging over here with Malekith. So again, Marauders matched up with Bleak Swords. This squad got shredded. My opponent has a good amount of Dark Shards sitting on both ramps. I've kind of matched that with Blues and Pinks. And Marauders of Spears sitting on the side, both sides. This one just to prevent any kind of cavalry play. And on this side supporting these basic Marauders in case they charge in. They do have Furies flying around back there. You can see my Marauders got dealt away with pretty quickly. These guys are still alive, but they've taken quite a beating. And they were able to get another squad of Bleak Swords charging up this ramp to disrupt my shooting. A lot of firepower coming in from the Dark Elves. Screamer's going to jump on top of Malekith, summoned in Chaos Furies and got them on top of these Dark Shards. They are pushing uphill now that they chased off my Marauders on the right side. And so I'm bringing these guys to support. My Screamers intercepted their Harpies, although that's probably not the best matchup for these guys since they're armor piercing and anti-large, neither of which are going to give a bonus to dealing with Harpies. And they also have low armor, so the Harpies' lack of armor piercing is not a thing for them. So Blue Horrors getting chased off by these Bleak Swords. The Screamers are doing a decent amount of damage on the Malekith. You know, he's a very high value target, so that's good for me to get on top of him when I can. He's got decent armor, 90 armor. And still some aerial combat going on here. I brought in my Exalted Lord of Change, I believe he's called. Can't even find my mouse. Yep. So he's helping deal away with these guys. Does he cause terror? Maybe he just causes fear. Oh, he causes fear and terror. So that's good for chasing off some of these lower morale units. You can see I'm not doing too great over here. I was able to deal with these Bleak Swords, but that's such a low value unit. You know, they disrupted my shooting for some time. I ended up having to bring in these Marauder Spears for support. And you can see my basic Marauders are gone. I'm not sure what happened to the Pinks I had over here. They might be gone completely. I don't see me having repositioned them, so they might have kind of just fell victim to the bleak swords. But Malekith's backed up, took a good amount of damage from the screamers. I brought in a soul grinder at this point because I wanted to get something to deal with some of their shooting that was going on. The Reaper bolt throwers I was just not really able to get on top of at this point. There was so much going on the center of the map, and I didn't feel comfortable sending screamers or furies back there. I was kind of worried about them getting shot down by these troops and getting chased off by Malekith, so I brought in a soul grinder to get some shots off on the dark shards, and they are just hogging point 2. You can see they've got a lot of troops down here. Blackguard of Nagaron is really going to be a good holding force. Good armor piercing, good anti-large, and just very strong armor. Pretty good wind spell from him there. I'm not sure what that spell is. Gaze of Malice. Okay, he brought Power of Darkness. Okay. I'm not going to spend too much time trying to get familiar with their spells right now, but I've been seeing him use that wind spell during this battle. I really was so distracted with everything going on that I didn't even keep track of what kind of magic he was using during the battle. But again, Screamers getting on top of Malekith, definitely good for me. Got my Exalted Lord of Change, getting a blue fire off, and I figured that was a safe shot since he was kind of getting closer to my spawn point, although he's still over top of point 2, but I'd be able to get a pretty solid hit from that range with that spell. I've pulled off a point 3 because he has not been threatening that, and I really need to get downhill and get some momentum pushing on point 2, and that is what's happening now. So I got Screamers on top of Malekith still, got Marauders down here fighting with the Blackguard of Nagaron, Pinks shooting in for support, got Blue Horrors, more Marauders with spears that are pushing down on the point. These Marauders that had got chased off of this initial engagement, you can see a bunch of their comrades down here had fled, but are now back into the combat. And my Lord has been taking some shooting. It seems like he's been targeting with the Reaper bolt throwers at this point. You can see him shooting there. And I was doing my best to keep this guy moving around so he wasn't getting hit too much by those bolts, but it was hard for me to keep track of that. It seems that there is a limit to how much different movements you can have queued up. I was holding shift and kind of dragging in circles for my guy to fly around occasionally, but it seemed that he was stopping pretty often. I'm not sure if getting hit disrupts that or what was doing that, but Chaos Furies flying around, trying to avoid Malekith, but also get on top of the Reaper bolt throwers. I've got the Chaos War Shrine that I brought in, and I was not using that well. I should have been paying attention to the Blackguard of Nagaron being over there, and that thing was by itself. It's really supposed to be a buffing tool that sits back and supports, and I'm not sure if it's necessarily usually sent into the combat or if it usually just sits in the background, but I kind of just threw it in there to get on the point, and really didn't use it well. And you can see he's a good bit ahead of me in the value trading right now. Luckily, because I was able to take back point 2 and he hasn't put pressure on 3, I've got a little bit of a victory point lead, but a little over 1,000 behind in victory points. So he's still got some Bleak Swords parked on point 1. He's got Dark Riders back here dealing with my Furies, also some Bleak Swords helping out his Reaper Bolt Throwers that I was trying to get on top of. And now he's chasing me off of point 2. Crows of Cain come in, so he's got Regiments of Renown. Harpies in there. My Soul Grinder is getting chased away. I brought in some Chaos Furies myself to help get in there. And you can see my Lord is pretty low on health. He's about a third health, but his barrier is recharging occasionally, so Pink's coming in to provide some shooting support against these Harpies. I also brought some Screamers. They've got a little bit of experience on them, as you can see. 3 chevrons. Gonna get them on top of Malekith and get some more damage off on him. Spawn of Tzeentch coming in. These are not the Regiments of Renown. I usually will try to bring the weird spawn because of they provide some kind of buff or debuff. I forget which one, but want to get them in here. Although they do have the Blackguard of Nagaron, 2 squads of them, I figured having some Pinks and some Marauders on top of them would be able to distribute the damage, and the spawn wouldn't be punished too much by the anti-large going on in here. They do have their Dark Shards up on this hillside, and also some Repeater Crossbow Dark Riders. So again, more Dark Elf firepower coming in, sitting up on those ramps as they should. I'm sending in Furies to try to deal with them, but they just got extinguished because that was one of the summons for my Lord. Pink Horse coming in to support. You can see the Soul Grinder just used his last piece of ammunition, shooting at these. Let's see, who was he shooting at? I'm not sure if he was shooting at Malekith or if I had him shooting at these Dark Shards. I think he might have been shooting at Malekith because those looked like they fell short. Marauder's getting chased off. My Lord kind of still sitting in the back. You can see his barrier recharged, so that's pretty good for me. I was really making sure I was being attentive to that because given the situation with how far I was behind in the gold value and me struggling to hold point 2, I really wanted to make sure my Lord didn't get killed so that my morale got cracked and I couldn't really fight effectively around point 2. So Pink's coming in here doing some more missile exchange or some skirmishing with the Dark Shards. He's got Bleak Swords coming in to support, and I have some blues coming into... oh, I set that to toggle on accident. I gotta figure out how to change that later, but brought some blues into support. Ideally, I should have brought these pinks back and try to keep them out of that engagement, but Marauders coming in to get on top of the Black Guard. These spawn, there's still 4 models left, so they're dealing with these guys. They brought Dark Riders with shields in to support, and again, Screamers chasing down Malekith. That was really the theme of this match for me, trying to get these guys on top of him as he's flying around, and not let him get too much value in the infantry blob fights that were going on. My Lord is flying back around. I'm not sure if I'm looking to get a spell off here or what, but he's kind of coming back. Maybe not into the engagement. Marauders coming downhill, looking to get in on that melee and support. You can see this little cinematic fire of the pinks and the blues coming in. And point 2 is still under my control. I still got the capture weight on it, but he's getting pretty close to taking it for himself. Again, I haven't really been applying any pressure over here. I got some Furies coming in, got some chevrons on them. My Lord's still flying around. And right now, they are somewhat sparse on frontline troops. They got 3 squads of Bleak Swords, 1 which is about to get cracked, but no kind of elite infantry on the field. Their shooters are dealing with my Chaos Fury, so although they're kind of getting shredded, it's not too bad for me because it's at least distracting their missile fire from the fight on the point. And Malekith is kind of playing the same game as my Exalted Lord, and you can see, look how low his health is. He's still getting hit by that bolt thrower. I wasn't moving him around enough. But Malekith kind of playing the same game. It's kind of funny. We have these 2 big, expensive flying lords, both trying to avoid getting taken out. At this point, he's 2,000 ahead in the value trading. I do have a little bit of a lead on the victory points, and this Manticore scared the shit out of me. I saw this thing flying in and immediately started right-clicking. I brought in a squad of Screamers. Luckily for me, I had enough points. That was not necessarily intentional that I was saving up points to deal with any kind of flying pressure, but just so happened that I had enough to bring in a squad of Screamers and intercept this Feral Manticore. And then again, was kind of skirting around that combat, making sure that my Lord didn't get jeopardized. But I saw the rampage happen. The what is it called? Out of control, or I guess rampage is just one type of the out of control things that is signified by that flashing exclamation mark. So I figured I could charge in and kind of just not worry about him too much since he was already set on his target. Got a pink fire shot off in this little melee here. Did pretty good damage to the Bleak Swords, a little bit to the Cold One Knights. The pink fire I don't think has armor piercing on it. If it does, it's not much. So it did a lot more to the Bleak Swords than the Cold One. Cold One Knights? Yeah. So Furies still just throwing them back every once in a while, trying to get on top of the Reaper Bolt Throwers. Screamers now coming in, now that the Feral Manticore has been dealt with. Screamers coming in to support and deal with some of these Dark Riders and Cold One Knights. I really wanted to get some anti-large in there because I did not have any in my infantry line. Again, you see this is blues, 2 squads of pinks, and my Marauders. And one thing that I'm noticing that I hadn't noticed during the match is I was setting attack orders for pinks to get missile shots off, and they were oftentimes getting mixed up in the melee because they were going, walking into the melee whilst they were trying to get in range to shoot at the Dark Shards and things like that. So being aware of the range of the troops I'm dealing with is something for me to work on. You can see my opponent has taken point 2. I'm starting to swing it back in my favor, but they did take control of that. Luckily for me, point 3 is still mine. I'm a little bit ahead in the victory points, but my opponent's still 2,000 ahead in value trading. My Furies that I sent around the back, they had fled off the field almost, but I brought them back in to try to get some more pressure on their back lines. They just got annihilated. My Screamers are chasing the Crows of Cain. I should have turned them around because then they're just going into an area where they're very susceptible to missile fire. Malekith going in to fight with them. And the point for 2 continues. So a lot of units fleeing from the center area. I got Screamers coming in. Marauders clashing with the Bleak Swords on point 2. This is really all the capture weight that's on there. I'm bringing in some spears because I realized that my opponent had a pretty good amount of cavalry on the field. Cold One Knights here. Dark Riders with shields here. Dark Riders with repeater crossbows over here. Crows of Cain are sitting in the back. I'm not sure if they have regeneration. I see the healing cap. I'm not sure what they were getting their health back from. Okay, so if they're in melee, they regenerate some. So, again, for point 2, I'm about to pull that back in my favor because I was able to finally get some more capture weight on that. Took that just as he was closing the gap on the victory points. And over here, my opponent had brought this cavalry over, and I sent these Chaos Furies over. I noticed that both of these troops are relatively low armor, so these guys can fight somewhat effectively. Especially, you know, they've got 40 melee attack. I'm not sure if any of that is getting buffed from something else. I see it's green, but I'm not sure what would be buffing that. But Screamers coming to support. Again, anti-large is going to be good against those Dark Riders. My Lord is basically dead. Look, he's got 409 health. And Malekith has 664. So both Lords very jeopardized at this point. Lot of shooting coming in from their side of the map. I'm starting to get some blue horrors in here. Money's running pretty low. You can see the value points or the victory points is getting very contentious. I'm starting to get to the point where he's going to need a triple cap. I think he might need one as of now, if I'm right about that. Can't really do the math right now. There's like a lot going on. Fresh squad of Dark Riders coming in. Luckily for me, I still had some Marauders. I was trying to get them to issue an attack command on these guys before they got to my blue horrors, but at that point I realized I was going to need to, you know, might as well countercharge. That's one thing that I actually don't know. In a situation like that where you have a small infantry that doesn't have charge defense, is it better to countercharge or to brace when there are cavalry charging in at you like that? Marauders fighting on top of Malekith. He's kind of gotten into that area. I guess he was just trying to get some capture rate on the point. He's at 609 health. My Lord is still sitting in the back at 133 health and 133 kills coincidentally. Fury's going around in the back, trying to chase down some of their shooting power. Screamers as well are going around, flying around in their backfield. Ideally, I should have noticed that Malekith was right over here and redirected them to get on top of him because his speed is not great, 81. And at that point, my opponent gave up because of the victory point situation. I should say he conceded, which was reasonable at that point. It was going to be hard for him to wrestle 2 points away from me. He needed a triple cap given the victory point situation. And good play to him. You know, he really had me beat on the damage value there, on the value trading. But luckily, I was able to just contend for point 2 after I lost it in the beginning, and eventually win on victory points. So, take a quick look at the unit stats. This is not a matchup I had played before, so pretty good value on my Exalted Lord. Oh, Pinks did really well. Screamers did incredibly well. Screamers and Pinks did really well, both of them. Marauders did decent. Blues did decent. Some of these are resummons. In fact, a lot of these are probably resummons. It was a long match because of how close the victory points were. Marauders didn't do great. Oops, switched the wrong one. My Soul Grinder didn't do great. My War Shrine did horrible. And that was my fault. The way I utilized it was not good. My Chaos Spawn did not do good. getting these guys on top of Bleak Swords would have made a lot more sense than me getting them into that fight with the Black Art of Nagaron. I really was trying to get them off that point so I could get capture weight, so I don't really regret the way I used them, but I figure if I had brought them into a situation where they could get in melees with Bleak Swords and things like that, these guys would have accrued a lot more value. And the Furies did pretty well. Again, I'm not sure how many times I resummoned them, but I think just getting in the back and disrupting their shooting, even though they were getting killed off pretty quick by his counterplay, he was using Dark Riders and things like that to get them out of there. Shutting down the shooting, I think, was a good move. Malekith, not too much value on him. He didn't have too many good targets. I would assume that if you're using Malekith, you want to be able to jump on top of some kind of high-value infantry that doesn't have anti-large. And he was not able to do that. The Blackguard did pretty well for him. Reaper Bolt Thrower did decent. Dark Shards did not as well as I thought they would have. Bleak Swords were alright. Let's see, anything else of note? Dark Riders with Repeating Crossbows did alright. Yep. And wow, these Harpies did a lot of work. So, good play to my opponent. Definitely a matchup I'll learn some more about. But yeah, I'll see you on the next replay, and thanks for watching.